Looking to enhance the appeal and performance of your gym with state-of-the-art equipment? Look no further than the Gym Administrator. Founded by Sal Corrente, professional wrestling manager, promoter, and author of the great book Bruno Sammartino, the autobiography of wrestling's living legend, available on Amazon.com, the Gym Administrator will spot you on that final rep and assist you every step of the way from purchase through installation, whether it be strength training, cardiovascular training, or performance enhancement. The Gym Administrator works with a wide array of leading vendors and suppliers carefully selected to meet the diverse needs of your clientele. Service the way you remember it. Contact us at 914-494-1066 or visit our website at thegymadministrator.com, as well as all social media platforms. The Gym Administrator. All your fitness needs under one roof. Scan the barcode at the bottom of the screen to get started today.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty Nefaro for our first episode of the Thursday evening is This Week in Pro Wrestling with the star of the show, Jimmy. Jimmy, how are you, bud? Good to see you.
What's happening? You sound very sedate. Very sedate.
I
What's going on?
I am a little sedate, but you know, I will tell you this: it's much better to be in studio on my end and not, listen, I think if I worked hard enough at it, I could probably do a decent job, but certainly not the level that our man Abe does for sure, or Tin Mirror Studios does. So it's more relaxing to be able to do my show with my partner instead of having to worry about production and all that other nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, juggling is not on the agenda usually. You want to be able to focus. I got you.
And, I wanted to do this tribute show to Mike Halac. It's a year has passed. Actually, I think July 12th, if I'm right. July 11th or July 12th. What was the date? And, I didn't want to do some schlocky show, to tribute to this man. So Pierre News is from Germany. He set his alarm. I'm waiting for him to check in. He's got his link, so hopefully he checks in. But we still got a lot of talking to do, Jimmy. And I wanted to read the post from last year about the passing of Mike Halac, and then maybe have you weigh in on your experiences with Mantaur. Mike Halac, who wrestled in the WWE in 1990s under the ring name Mantaur, has died. He was 55. Halac's daughter, Demi, announced the news on Facebook, according to TMZ. He went peacefully in his sleep. He is no longer in pain, she wrote. Halac also had a run in ECW under the ring name Bruiser Martino and defeated Jerry the King Lawler in the UWSA for Promotions World Heavyweight Championship under the ring name Tank. Halac continued to wrestle on the independent circuit throughout 2019. This is a bitter pill to swallow. Rip Mike Halac, my tag team partner, great friend and brother, in all the sense of the world except blood, wrote Paul New, who wrestled under the name PN News. And hopefully Paul will join us shortly. We fought like family. We always made up. You will be missed. God bless your soul until we meet again. Your love, your brother. Halac also on the post was recognized for speaking about with his battle with diabetes. Would you share, Jimmy, with everybody watching your relationship with Mike?
It's a unfortunately, we've had handfuls of guys who have passed away since we started doing this show years back. But Mike's death doesn't really register with me. I still kind of haven't accepted it because it just seemed way too soon to too nice a man who had so much more to live for. He was hilarious as a person. He was hilarious. Mike, you probably remember he joked with me to the point where I was ready to jump over the table. He was screwing with me
Yeah.
so badly, but it was on such a funny level that he was, for a guy who carried that enormous size. I remember you and me commenting about the size of his back as we approached him at the restaurant, and it was like, oh my God, this guy is just immense. The pain that he carried, and he did share with us a lot of his pain in the past, physical pains and stuff, and everything he was dealing with, having to carry around that enormous frame, that powerful looking enormous frame. My God, I'm telling you, the backside of him walking up to him, I was like, this might be the widest WIDEST that I've ever seen. I was like, oh my God. But he carried the pain with such a dignity, and correct me if I didn't catch that right with him, because he really did carry it with such a dignity and a sense of humor towards it, and no regret about the things that he'd done in his life, and an enthusiasm and optimism as to what was going to happen in the future regarding his daughter and being a dad. And his life is good philosophy. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
He's everything I wish I could be more of, and I just can't register that he was taken already. And he was like to me, he was like if I could draw a picture, he was almost like a comet in the sky. Like he came into our lives, he was there like a bright light, and boom, he was gone. And it's still very hard, along with, as we talked earlier about J.J. Maguire. It's like one of the very few people we've come across that I still can't register it, Mike.
That's pretty well said, Jimmy. I know we're talking about Mike, but it's funny you bring up JJ. Last Sunday, they had the documentary on Mark Henry on A&E, which, by the way, again, I can't talk better about how the WWE does their documentaries, right? But
right,
on a wrestling level, I was never a fan of Mark Henry. He's on Busted Open Radio, so as a radio host, I'm also wasn't a fan of Mark Henry. After watching this documentary, Jimmy, I am now a fan of Mark Henry. And
how does that happen? Break it down.
So, all right, first of all, let's just start off here in the way this country is going right now. Mark Henry is an American hero. This is a guy that was in a sport of weightlifting or powerlifting. I want to say weightlifting, powerlifting, where juice was running rampant, and he refused to do it. He refused. We say often now, you and I, that if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. Mark Henry stands for a lot of different things. I remember way back when Hogan got knocked down for whatever comments he had made years back, and you and me vehemently defended Hulk Hogan and were angry over Mark Henry's comments about Hulk Hogan, because Mark Henry basically said Hulk Hogan has to do more than just apologize, right? And and at the time, I didn't understand it, but I don't want to drudge on too long. But the guy stands for something, whether you agree with it or not. He stands for it, and. Mm-hmm. Fast forward J.J. Maguire. J.J. Maguire comes to New York. We're at the big event together. You and I have a table. J.J.'s selling his stuff. We're having a good time. J.J. appeared on a bunch of our shows that weekend and played music. But the one thing I remembered was Mark Henry came to talk to the boys, and right by our table. And J.J. went over to Lanny Poffo, God rest his soul also, and said, "Can you get me a picture with Mark Henry?" So Lanny went over to Mark.
Mark had gone to visit Tony Atlas and Ron Simmons, correct?
Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, yes.
Was it Butch Reed that was
I
there?
think it was Butch Reed, yeah. The only reason I think it
thought-
was Butch Reed is because Tony would have been with us if he was there, right? So,
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
And Mark, took this great picture with him, and JJ was so elated over having a picture with the great Mark Henry. And again, Jimmy, if you watch this documentary, right, this is a guy that he won't take down his mother's house because of his love for his mother. This is a guy who went to Vince after doing wrestling for a while and said to Vince, hey, I think I'm going to go back into powerlifting for a little while because all these guys are saying I'm not the world's strongest man and I want to show them they're full of crap. And Vince says to him, you got it, but remember something. The WWE doesn't have room for the second strongest man. Think about the guts Mark Henry had to leave that 10-year. He was making $250,000 a year for 10 years, first guaranteed wrestling contract in history. He gave up that contract to go prove that he's the world's strongest man. And if I tell you, he won the competition.
Wow. I remember him pulling trucks. Wasn't he able to pull full 18-wheelers? It's like, are you kidding me?
I got to tell you, Jimmy, the guy is one incredible human being. And you know what? I would fairly say this, that Mike Halac was as big as Mark Henry, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he was first walking up to us? We were looking and we're like, holy Christ almighty. And
not to turn it into a joke, but when I saw him walk up, seeing the size of him, I was like, big guys must smoke really large joints, and he did not disappoint.
Well, I was thinking about something though, Jimmy.
I'm sorry,
and it's not something to make fun of, but Pharaoh does know his stuff. I remember Jimmy says to me, he goes, "He's a great guy, man. He ain't gonna last long."
Yeah,
remember that, Jimmy? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I was just too worried about his health and his history. He shared a lot of health problems.
He was suffering, Jimmy. He was suffering.
Yeah, he was, and I figured something would give out. It's just too big to carry that. Just too big to carry all of that.
I told the story when he was doing on our channel, and he was on vacation, I think, in Niagara Falls, and he goes, "Hey, Monte, I want to come down and see you and Jimmy in studio." And I'm like, dude, Niagara Falls is like 12 hours away. What do you?
Right.
You can't come down here. Forget it. No, I'm coming down. He came down with his family. We went and had dinner, right? And then you sat down and you did I think his last show with him.
Yeah. But at the time I didn't realize it. He was fun to do the show with too. I mean, I only did it once with him, but I mean, it was a breeze. You know that something's good if it goes by really quick and you go, wow, that was quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
What I didn't realize afterwards is that this man's going to die. It really turns those memories that were already good memories into enhanced memories. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, from what happened after it, the fact that it happened that way. And it was kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but you remember the last thing he said was his philosophy on life on that particular last show. And he closed out with this is how you should look at life. This is how I look at life. And no one's guaranteed tomorrow and all this, but he spun it to be very positive. And then all of a sudden, you're dealing with having to call him. He's like, I fell, what? And then you're calling me, Jimmy, he's gone. I'm like, how did this all happen? But unfortunately, like you said, I did have a gut read that it would be so really unrealistic to think that, could you picture him having to carry that frame and everything into his 70s, his 80s, would his heart be able to do it? I mean, he looked like he had been through the mill, but yet somehow came out of it with an unbelievable approach towards life. He really was someone special to remember. That's for sure.
He was. I think he said on that show with you was he loved wrestling, man. He lived to wrestling, and I remember him. He was doing a show with New, on the channel. And then, him and Paul, it's interesting. Hopefully Paul wakes up. And again, I'm not bitching at Paul, right? The guy lives in Germany. He set his alarm for 2:00. So, hopefully he gets on here because I think it's important. He never had the opportunity on air to share his feelings about Mike. So, again.
Mike, for refresh my memory, were there talk about Mantaur and PN doing a show on our channel at some point? Like that?
They were. They were doing SOB Sports. And they had some sort of falling out, right? And so Mike wanted to keep doing the show by himself. And, again, we were talking about podcasting and everything else. At that time, that's when wrestlers just started kind of getting into the mix. I don't want to say they just started, but it was much newer last year. Or he started, I think, in like December of 2022, maybe October. So he was expecting, hopefully a big windfall. And at some points he was getting frustrated because the windfall wasn't there, right? It just wasn't picking up momentum at the point. And he was getting a little angry with Paul, and they kind of had a falling out. And then he was doing a show by himself. But then he started then he had signings he was doing.
Right.
And he was getting a whole bunch of requests to do podcasts since he was on the channel. So he was very happy. But the issue, me and him actually had an issue was, I'm pretty busy, right? So, again, I love doing the show every Thursday. I love doing the show with you. I love the Monty and the family, the Monty and the Farrow family tremendously. But otherwise, it's very hard for me to, find time. And if I can, I do, right? But it's difficult. But Mike was retired, right? He lived in Florida. He was doing his thing, and he was having some issues understanding that I wasn't at his beck and call when he needed me for certain things. And he got really pissed off at me. And, you know me, right? It's like no one's going to talk to me a certain way. I'm just not going to accept it. So we had a falling out. No, we didn't curse each other out or anything, but we just stopped talking. I said, that's it. You're not talking to me this way, bro. I don't know who the fuck you're talking to. Ba. And I remember, Jimmy, this to the day. I was having a barbecue with my wife in the back, just me and her. And I think she asked me about Mike, or maybe I brought Mike up, or maybe I was speaking to you about it, Jimmy, and I brought it up to my wife, whatever the case is. And my wife turns to me and she goes, Mike, you got to start in life letting some things go and forgiving people for having bad days. And really, you should reach out to him and, because you don't know what tomorrow brings. So I called him at the table that minute. He picked up. I apologized. He apologized. I think we did a show that following Tuesday. Then he came to New York. And then I think he did one final show, and I think like I said, I think his final words was like he loved wrestling. I forget if it was the final show you did with him or his actual final show. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But then he
actually said that he said that thing about the wrestling during the show I was on with him.
Right, okay. And then I just remember he wrote me and he left a message. He's like, he had fallen. He was in such severe pain. He's in the hospital. And, again, these are one of my biggest regrets I've had in my life, right? Instead of calling him that minute to be a real true friend, I didn't, right? I think I wrote, oh, shit, I'll call you after work.
Right.
I did call him after work, but the phone kept ringing, right?
Right.
I think it was a Monday night. I'm in my man cave. I fall asleep like I always do. My phone rings like 1 a.m. I forget it was at Sportskeeda. Somebody was calling me, and they're like, Mike Halac, do you have any comments? Mike Halac's passed away. And I'm like, what? And I think I called you. I think I called Benny. I called Bruce. Like you just said, Jimmy, I still to this point, like certain things I just don't recover from. Losing Mike, and again, it could sound ridiculous, right? Because, I mean, how could we be really good friends. We weren't really good friends. We didn't even know each other that much.
Right.
But he shared so much stuff with me, man, from his family, like how much he loved his daughter, dude, and how much he loved his father. And
yeah. We saw enough of him to get a really good feel for him as a person. I don't think that, he was like you said, he didn't exactly block his history or how he felt about things to us. The short time we knew him, there was a lot of very real conversations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. The
A lot of very real
one thing I always
conversations.
liked too, dude, was when you said you were glad that he got his just due in like the dirt sheets and things like that. You were surprised, I think, but you were happy, right?
Yeah. Well, his passing was covered by major New York newspapers, and I was very surprised by that. I didn't think that they would give him that sort of recognition, you know. After all, he's only Mantaur, right? In the annals of how you look at the back of the baseball card. Oh, but I was absolutely pleasantly surprised and shocked that he got that sort of coverage, Daily News, Post, big deal.
Where do you think in the annals of it all, do you think Mike was misused? I mean, this guy was a true athlete. I understand it's professional wrestling, but he was a true athlete,
Well, I was gonna run it by you because when I think of Mantaur, I don't think of Mantaur. I think of Mike without that mask, and his sheer size, enormity, and the fact that he was pretty damn agile back in the day for a guy his size.
Right.
So I ask you, was there really no room for another Vader in wrestling at that time? Because basically he could have been like a Vader, a guy his size. I could see it.
Well, didn't he go undefeated for like a year?
I know that he had a streak, but it wasn't anything like, look, it wasn't being pushed massively. It wasn't like even when Tatanka got a push, it's not something I remember like, oh God, he was unstoppable, but it's just, I feel like he could have been definitely used better. But again, we talked to him many times. He wasn't exactly comfortable in the back, and he was definitely not in with the most important people to be in with as far as wrestlers if you were going to get to Vince in a favorable way as far as your booking. So there was a lot of factors that played into why Mike wasn't able to get further. We have to look at it from Vince's side and what was Vince being told by his boys. We both know that Mike was not very fond of Razor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, obviously shit happened behind the scenes. On an optimal level, like let's say you and I are at the hands of a company that's big enough to give him that sort of platform. I know you. I'm pretty sure, because let's just say the Mantaur thing hasn't happened at all. He just walks in and we're like, sizing him up. I'm pretty sure you would turn to me and go, he's a fucking wall.
Yeah.
You got to push this monster.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I can't see either of us coming up with, well, let's put a Minotaur, mask on his head. I mean, sometimes Vince is definitely on some really good acid. Because, there was better ways to.
The thing I never got, though, dude, they brought him back to be the bodyguard for Goldust.
Yeah.
Later on in his career, and he was also wasn't he? What was he part of the militia? What was that group? I can't remember. He was wearing a mask. He was part of like the what was it, the like African militia or something like that. The WWE at the time.
It's not coming to me. I first and foremost, I'm more impressed by what he did over in Germany. What he was doing in Europe.
Benny says Truth Commission. He was part of the Truth Commission, right?
The Truth Commission. There we go.
And that didn't last. That didn't last long, and I didn't understand why they didn't keep him as the bodyguard for Goldust. I mean, that lasted one pay-per-view. Like
right.
he had, to me, he had the look to be a beast. I don't understand why that just didn't work out. You know what I mean?
I fully understand it. I think it really goes back to what was going on in the dressing room. I fully understand it. Look, it's like anything else, but it's different. Look, when you're on a football roster, if you're not the most popular guy in the dressing room, if you're able to just prove it on the field when you get your chance that you can knock the smack and snot out of other players and play the game correctly, you'll get that shot at least in exhibition season, you'll get that shot.
Right.
In pro wrestling, you will not get that shot to be an intercontinental champion or world champion or whatever if Vince is not on your side, or more importantly, in this case, the locker room's not on your side. That's my whole point. The most important guys in the locker room were not on Mike's side. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. Vince did play favorites, and he's not stupid to play favorites. Look at the favorites he was playing to. Box office billionaires, all of them. So I don't blame Vince at all. But I do feel that was probably at least 50% of why, we didn't see a greater career out of him. You're at the mercy of your promoters. At the end of the day, how you play those cards, even Mike himself said, I could have been better at that. It's not for everybody.
Well, I think I heard Kevin Nash say that he was too nice for the industry. And knowing Mike,
not for
Mike was rough, right? Without a doubt,
Right.
but he really wasn't.
Right.
Like, does that make sense?
Right.
Like, he talked like
Yeah.
like he was like a dog with like a big
Right.
growl, but no bite. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying he
Right.
wasn't a tough dude and couldn't kill you. I'm not saying that.
I think that some people in the business are nice and do make it because for some reason, they're accepted. Did Ted DiBiase strike you as a guy back in the day that was a complete prick to everybody and went to Vince constantly and blah, blah, blah? No. He sounds like a guy who was just great at what he did and didn't seem to be a dick behind the scenes and got the push because he was fucking great. And no one disliked him in the back enough to try to halt his progress. A guy like DiBiase. I'm just thinking of guys we've met.
Right.
And how they seem to be. And DiBiase didn't strike me as an ass towards anybody. So I guess it's really undefinable what makes you, it's whatever kind of chemistry you seem to have when you walk into a new surrounding. And in his case, when he walked into the WWF locker room, Nash, Hall, and Michaels, whoever else looked at him and went, "Duh! No." And they were probably a little bit intimidated because the guy's bigger than all of them, except
Right.
for Nash.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nash is not really intimidated by anybody, obviously. You don't walk up to Samoa Joe and slap him silly and be the kind of guy who's intimidated. You know what I mean? But the other guys, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he tussled with Razor, didn't he? Like, for real?
I think the story tells, I think that Razor took a cheap shot at him, right? And he fought back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Hall is a tough man, but that would be one hell of a fight for real if that one really carried out. Oh, my God. Those two? But how do you win in the locker room? You can't.
I meant to ask you this because it kind of went over. We had, Brian Blair in a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And did you notice Brian said that Scott Hall could not make it through Graham's training? He mentioned Hall. It kind of like was a quick flash, and I was thinking about going back to it, but what was he going to say? So, how tough could Scott Hall really have been then? Right? If he bailed out on that.
It's not about that to me when it comes to Scott Hall. And you know what's weird? I'm going to use another example Brian gave a couple of weeks ago. Some wrestlers upstairs. Okay, they have all the gifts in the world. Obviously, Scott Hall had all the gifts you need to be a great wrestler because he turned out to be one, obviously. I look at Scott Hall like the same way Brian was explaining Tiffany Stratton.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
She didn't want to deal with the bullshit either. She knew she had the goods. There was an arrogant almost like, I don't need to do this to get to where I'm going. I could do it anyway. I don't need all of this. And you can see that Brian was like, what the fuck's wrong with you, girl? Nothing's wrong with her. It's just that she's not built for now drop and give me 200. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't mean she's not tough. It doesn't mean Scott Hall's not tough. My God, Scott Hall killed a man in self-defense. Scott Hall's one tough motherfucker. Rest in peace.
Right.
But my God, I think it's just really your makeup. It doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to be a bust just because you can't handle. Look, if God forbid World War III ever happens, I'm pretty confident in saying I'm sure there's going to be some people that know what to do to defend themselves that didn't serve. If you understand what I'm saying,
of course. I mean,
the ones who served are going to have a huge advantage. Don't get me wrong, because at least they'll have all the training.
Well, wait. You know what, though, dude? I think you might be wrong there because you know what? Some people do more work.
Don't tell me that.
Well, no. People
God.
do more work on the outside. I mean, Christ almighty, some people lived for this stuff, right? Like,
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know. I do know what you mean. We have a friend that has a shelter, basically. So yes,
yeah.
I understand exactly what you mean.
It goes back to the fact, like, if Mike Tyson was the toughest guy in the world, are you going to tell me that there's a guy sitting on his couch drinking a beer that could have walked into the ring and pummeled Mike Tyson? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, again, I think it's just like with life. It's all odds and everything else. I was just surprised that when he was naming a list of people that couldn't make it, I was thinking to myself, like, at first I thought to myself, wow, Scott Hall wanted to be a wrestler and he just like bailed out on it, right? And then I thought to myself, you know what? It kind of makes sense because to Scott Hall, this was just about money. It was just about business. It was about, and you know what? I'm not going to kill myself of business, right? This is insanity, right?
Right. And when you look at it, I don't think it's a coincidence that, like, one of his, if not his most famous match, his ladder match, 1,000% effort, right? There, he's working. But look who he's working with, his best buddy, Sean.
Right.
You know what I mean? Would he do that for Joe Blow from Idaho at a house show somewhere? Probably be like, all right, I'm going to pin you and I'm fucking out of here.
No, right. No, I got you. I understand what you're saying. Scott Hall was a great worker, dude. The guy could work. The guy could work.
He was. Oh, Scott Hall. Everything changed after we started doing the show. We started meeting. So Scott Hall, once upon a time was one of my 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. Then we got to deal with him.
Right.
It's funny how that works.
Do you think we were too judgmental back then?
No, it's not that. Look, I don't know what judgmental's got to do with paying somebody just for an hour of their time, as far as on air to talk to us and stuff like that. I guess he did deliver at the end of the day, of course. You know what I mean? But he was so grouchy that day. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
He was this car ride from hell. Where the fuck are we anyway?
I did think that he had an arrogance about him, that he was Scott Hall, like he was something special.
I got to be honest, even though it may seem on the surface I'm complaining about, that side of Scott Hall, I wouldn't have him any other way. I got to be honest, because Scott Hall's I'm the shit factor is what made Scott Hall, the character in ring, so fucking great and made Scott Hall all this money and all this fame. All right? Because one of the greatest things I've ever seen, and you probably remember this, I can't count how many different times beer cups were thrown at the NWO or thrown at Scott Hall or whatever, but this one particular one is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And this is his arrogance playing into his character. Do you ever see the one where he gets slammed in the head with a beer? Slammed! You know what he starts doing?
Right.
Starts slicking back his hair with the beer and then takes the stuff off his fingers and goes like this at the crowd. Wow. I mean, talk about cool, My shit don't stink kind of level cool. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's what it all comes down to. As crabby as he was, and let's not forget the first time he was wonderful. Hey, come behind the table, hang out with me for 2 hours. You're looking at me like, what'd you do? Give him tomorrow's lotto numbers?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We saw both sides of Scott Hall. Scott Hall was a sweetheart to us the first time we met him. Like, went out of his way.
It kind of makes sense, Jimmy, because if you hear the stories about Scott Hall, some days he was up, some, I guess, just like anybody else, but he had more roller coaster rides than the normal people.
Right.
I'm assuming.
I'm very troubled by Kevin Sullivan right now. I wanted to ask you how you felt about that because, we have fond memories of Kevin.
Well, from what I understand, he's getting a little better. I don't know.
Is he?
I will tell you this, from the pictures I saw, it was
Yeah.
Lights are on, nobody's home type of thing.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you, Christ, I was booking shows and I spoke to Kevin 6 months ago because I was going to have him on. We were going to talk about shit with us, right? And he's like, yeah, no doubt. Just tell me what date. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, what just happened here? So it's, life is moving at a speed that I can't seem to comprehend anymore. You know what I'm saying?
No.
It's like, You turn around all this. But you know what, dude? I think, since Paul hasn't called in yet, I think this is a good conversation we could veer off to, and hopefully Paul wakes up. I've been trying to ring him. A lot of things don't make sense to me, right? So I was on the phone. Like, okay, we know who we know, and we have our family here, and blah, 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 blah. But if you really start looking just on the pro wrestling genre of podcast and broadcast or whatever else you want to call them, there's a lot out there that you don't even realize. Some are like nothing, and then there's some like you're like, holy Christ. And I think I told you I put this girl on, Wheezy Blonde. It came up on my feed, and she was doing a Raw watch along. Okay, and there's literally 600 people watching. But here's the difference, guys. This is what I want to tell you. So I think last week we spoke about God, what the fuck's her name? I can't remember right off the top of my head. I got brain freeze right now. She's very popular right now, the girl on Busted Open Radio, and she'll come to my mind. If anybody remembers, please pop the name in the chat. Thank you, Denise Salcedo. Thank you, RJ. She's very popular. Everybody's asking Denise to come on. So this girl's got like 600 people in her Wheezy Blonde. So I go to Denise Salcedo, who also does a Raw watch along, and I know Denise, right? She's got 100. She's got 100, but at least Denise is talking. I take the sound on my computer and I put it on so I could hear it. All this girl's doing is watching Raw. She's not. Right. She's just like, whoa, oh, ooh, he got hurt.
Yeah, great.
And I'm like,
that's great.
What the what is going on here, man?
Welcome to the dumbing down of society, because this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen happen. I've always been against it from the very moment I heard about watch-alongs, and I'll spell it out this way.
Sure.
Mike, could you imagine? It's 1982, the summer of 82, and the WWF is doing one of their special shows from, let's say, the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, on USA Network, right?
Yeah.
Now, I come over because that was summer vacation. It was a big treat for you and I to get to see wrestling.
Yeah.
And my parents let me come over because it's going to be a late showing at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? Now, I show up, and I say to you, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we watch? I got this other TV set I brought along. Why don't we watch someone else watching this while we attempt to watch it? Doesn't that sound awesome? And then I got this vision of you taking me out into the backyard by the garden gnomes and pile driving me on my head.
Yeah.
Because I don't have any clue why somebody who's a real wrestling fan who loves wrestling would want to tune into a pay-per-view, but then just sit there and watch someone else watching it. What, you need to be shown the reaction so you can react the same way? What is this? This is a total dumbing down. I don't understand why anybody would be into this. If you are, I apologize. I obviously don't get it, and I obviously don't want to catch it, because I don't understand that at all. Why the fuck would you not just be tuning into the show to watch the show, to listen to Graves with his quips, or to listen to Cole, or to listen to whatever company you fucking listen to? You really?
Well, I think the concept is, Jimmy.
It's
like,
weird.
I think the concept is like, hey, Jimmy and Bart, come on over. Let's watch WrestleMania together, and then we're watching it. We're all talking, right? That's the type of thing. But here's the thing: you're in a room with people texting. And I guess that's kind of like talking.
Right.
And if the host is watching and kind of giving a play-by-play, or at least giving something, it makes a little sense to me. I agree with you 100%, Jimmy. I'm not disagreeing with you. But it makes a little sense. This girl was giving nothing, dude.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she was giving nothing or something. And think about it, too. Every time you look down to start texting what you think about the show to the person that's watching the show that you're reacting to, you're not watching the fucking show.
Right.
You're texting. What are you doing? Concentrate. This is like when you go to a live baseball game and everyone's staring at their phones. Or my favorite one that goes back decades. This is like that also. I've never understood it. If you do this, fine, whatever. You go to a live game to get the live baseball experience, and there you are listening, not even on the headphones, because we didn't have those back then, really, listening on your radio to the play-by-play. My father took his Nathan's hot dog and threw it at the guy. He's like, if I want to hear
Jimmy,
the
keep carrying it
play-by-play,
on.
I'll
Keep
stay
carrying it
home.
on.
I'll
Hey,
stay
man, you
home.
all right?
You know. Meanwhile, folks, Mike is currently probably on the phone with PN News, who has just woken up from Germany. Are we ready already? Oh, that's priceless. Guys, you got to love live TV. Live TV rules. Hold on. He's probably going to reach for his headset now. There he goes. Don't worry. Hear you. I made a whole stand-up routine out of it.
Thank God. No, that was Paul. He just got up. He's calling in. So I'm sorry for walking up there. Not a problem.
I got you.
So, dude, I missed it. I guess I'll have to watch on a replay about what you had to say, dude. But
no, it was more like play-by-play about what you were doing. I thought it was great. You know
what? Talking on the phone?
Oh my goodness, he's reaching for his headset. Do you believe this, folks? His headset.
Dude, I'm being 100% serious. It's like there's entertainment, and then I don't understand a lot of stuff. We were talking about the Yankees. You know, we were going over the lineup before with the show.
Yeah.
And
horrible.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The things that are happening just don't make sense. Look, back to the watch-alongs, okay? Or back to anything. If the person looks good, I get it, right? You might want to stare at it, whatever.
I don't. Wait a minute.
I know you
Stop,
don't, dude.
Wait
but
a minute. Stop. I do not get that. What do you mean if the person looks good? Now you're gonna sit there and watch them. Oh wow, she's hot. What are you gonna slap the monkey? Is he gonna slap the monkey while you watch the wrestling? I don't understand why that would be an extra additive. Okay, you can talk to me because you're hot. What? What? The whole concept is still stupid. If you need to do that, go click on Pornhub. What the hell are you doing?
By the way, I want to update people. I think on August 8th, we've got Diamond Dallas Page on the main show. He'll be in, which will be pretty cool. And then
it's me. It's D.
Dude, you're not going to do that, are you? Are you going to do that?
No. Well, maybe.
You might. That's you. You may do it. You know what? There's really nothing wrong with it, but I'd rather you not. And I will say on August 15th, Monty and the Pharaoh have an exclusive interview. I'm not allowed to say the person's name because they are still under contract with the WWE. But they've been recently I got to be careful. All I'm going to say is they cannot come on air. We will have his first, his first exclusive. I can't believe I'm saying this, dude. I'm falling into the trap, like the exclusive.
That's the first exclusive.
The exclusive Monty and the Pharaoh.
You know what? We need a What a Monty chopper.
No.
Come on, man.
No.
What a Monty. We'll put your big head with the shades on the side of the chopper. It'd be great. What do you mean? It'd be awesome. What a chopper!
You just keep going that way, bro.
Look at Abe. I can hear Abe.
You can hear Abe laughing, right?
Abe's dying in the background. You all right over there, Abe?
The what a day chopper, the what a Monty chopper is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, what a Monty.
And by the way, you're going to the gathering soon, right?
Yeah.
So what's the plan? Tell me what. It's like 3 days or 4 days. You're going to be there, right?
Dude, I was looking at the names. I'm getting dizzy. There's a lot of people I might have to duck. You know, like, oh God, oh crap.
Yeah, dude, you don't have me. You don't have me with you, man. There might be some heat going on.
I do have Karen.
You do have Karen. That is a good point.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting that.
That is a good point. You're 100% right. You've got Karen. You're 100% right, bro. That's right. You do. I mean,
don't get me wrong, though. I wouldn't mind if you popped out of the corner when I'm being.
But let me ask you, it's like a 4-day event. Like you're there for 4 days, right? It's like every day you have to be there, right?
Yeah, well, have to be there. I'm not my face is not on the poster, Mike. Let's calm down. You know what I mean? Live this week at the gathering, missing one tooth. Jimmy Farrell.
Dude, I think I'm gonna. I'm afraid I'm gonna be go on social media, like on fight thing what they have on X.
Here we go.
Like Farrell jumped by Bobby Fulton or something like that. Wrong guy. Bobby Fulton. Wrong guy. I get it.
Bobby Fulton? You don't like my odds with Bobby Fulton?
No, I do. Listen, I just pulled the name out of okay, you know.
Oh my God, Mike, he hit me with a spittoon. He hit me with a spittoon. Get the fuck?
With respect to Bobby Fulton, I'm sorry. I didn't.
We love Bobby.
Of course we do. I grabbed the name out of the top of my head. You know what I mean?
Bobby Fulton chasing me.
Yeah, dude, I got to be honest with you. You probably have to cancel the show if you got beat up by Bobby Fulton.
Jake the Snake comes over and cracks me with one of his pints.
Oh, please.
You know?
What's he going to hit you with his oxygen tank?
Oh, that's not right. You see, that's where you're mean and I'm nice. You're mean.
Because you'll go to the gathering. That's why you're nice.
Oh,
I got to be careful
nice
what I say.
I'm going to walk in like Jackie Gleason. Attention, I love everyone. Everybody.
Do you have an extra cigarette?
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, they're non-filtered. Would you like two?
Oh, my God. Who's going to the gathering, dude?
I don't even know. I figured you would know. You're the guy who pays attention to all of this shit. You know? I think Big Show's going to be there. I like Big Show.
Are you going to say from the Jet game?
Jet game?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the Big Joe Namath jersey. I was like, Namath. He turned around. He's like, yeah. Meanwhile, you and Mandy Rose are, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? He was a Gase fan. Remember that? He's like, he's going to coach his team to a championship. We're like, shut up, Big Show.
Oh,
go to AEW, will you?
Unbelievable. That's rough.
It is rough.
That is rough.
As we're waiting for Paul New to appear on our wonderful show here.
The call has to go. The call has to go over the ocean. So I'm not sure if the call has to get in a boat first.
Dude, that's that's another thing. Like, I don't know if I could live in Europe, man. I got to give the guy credit. I mean,
do you remember years back when you asked me what country I would choose to live in if I wasn't in the United States? And I think there was a couple of other people in the room, and I said England, and everyone was laughing at me.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
and then I looked at all of you, and what was my response? I was like, I want to go somewhere where I can fucking communicate with people. Sure. I speak English, you know? So, yeah, if I'm picking one place in the world, if I couldn't be here, I would be in England.
You could go to Israel.
You know?
Israel, they speak English.
Oi! I don't speak Hebrew. What's wrong with you?
They speak English in Israel, don't they?
I don't know my Baruchato out of noise. What are you talking about?
Wait, Paul is here. Is he here, Abe? He says he's on.
You guys got me?
Oh, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Paul, thanks for joining us, brother. How are you, buddy?
No problem. I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
Good. What time is it over there, bro?
Right now it's 2:32 in the morning.
Wow!
Look at this guy.
Thank you for getting up for us. Wow.
How's that, man?
Yeah, not a problem, guys. Not a problem, man. How's it going?
It's going. You know, we thought it would be a great opportunity. We didn't get to speak to you last year when Mike had passed away. And, you know, I know how close you were with Mike and how, you know, again, I'm not going to compare me and Jimmy's relationship with Mike to yours, trust me, but we got to see what kind of person Mike was and what a good man he was. And we were just talking before you came on and how hard it hit us. I guess to jump off here is, what was it like when you found out the news Mike had passed away?
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind. I actually thought I was going to be the first one to go. So I guess he was being a little bit selfish, is what I'm trying to say. No, it was really heartbreaking. I knew Mike for over 30 years, and when the story about me and Mike meeting was really crazy. My younger brother, both Mike and I were adopted, and my younger adopted brother, John, was going to school. He was going to college at the University of Omaha, Nebraska, Omaha, and ran into, and he was at this bar. And there was a guy who looked really a lot like me. And my little brother, John, just kept staring at him. And so Mike was getting irritated and agitated about it. And finally, when my little brother finally had the balls to go up and talk to Mike, he said, "Hey, I'm sorry about staring at you." He goes, "Yeah." Mike said something like, "Hey, I was about ready to knock your head off." He goes, "No, I was just wondering why my brother Paul was here in this bar, and he didn't let me know he was in town." And Mike goes like, well, I suppose you're going to tell me your brother's PN News. And he goes, yeah, my brother is PN News, and here, let me show you my driver's license and stuff. So that's kind of how we met by proxy. And John gave him my number, and we spoke a little while later. And he came up to Sioux City, Iowa, when I was with Sioux City with the WCW, and we just went from strength to strength there. And I got him his first booking and first professional booking in Germany and stuff. And we did a lot of tagging together. So yeah, I knew Mike for the better part of 30 years, and we always we were, we had our moments, but we always helped each other out. So it was kind of heartbreaking, and it took me quite a while to get settled in. You go through those 5 stages of grief, and because we'd been through so much, it was really kind of crazy. But here we are down the road, and I can talk about it without without tearing up or anything like that. But yeah, Mike was a special kind of guy. So he's he wasn't perfect, and nobody is, and I'm not perfect either. But he was my special kind of buddy. We were really like brothers in every sense of the word.
Paul, do you think that how did you feel about the coverage in the newspapers? I was very, being from New York, I was very, very surprised that Mike's passing was covered by the Daily News, the New York Post. Were you surprised that he got that much recognition after the fact?
Well, the thing is I never got to see all that information being over here, right?
Okay.
So stuck in Germany and Europe, there's unless you're picking up all that stuff, you really don't. I don't get all the news that they got in the States, but you got to remember, Mike. For a short run in the WWE, a couple times he was there, he was still it's among wrestling people and among other individuals. Excuse me that I'm stuttering because it's just so early in the morning. So I'll catch up here in a minute. Yeah, I didn't get to know that, but I'm glad that they covered him like that because yeah, he deserves it. He had his more than 15 minutes of fame.
What if you could spell out his legacy? What do you think his legacy would be written if you had the unfortunate responsibility of preparing an obituary? Where do you feel that his legacy should be in the pro wrestling world? How would you sum it up, being his closest friend apparently from the years by?
I would say to sum it up, I think Mike was probably one of the best unsung big men in the wrestling industry, and I'm talking everybody, whether it's Bam Bam Bigelow or guys like King Kong Bundy. I think for Mike's sake, I think he actually kind of probably got into the business about 3 or 4 years too late, But as far he was really talented. When you watch Mike perform, you could really believe what he was doing in the ring. His stuff looked real. So and that's the best compliment I can give anybody. If somebody can suspend my disbelief or my lack of belief that the industry, that the wrestling is real, Mike was one of those guys who could do that. And I know Bret Hart spoke well of him, and I wrestled against him. I wrestled as a tag team partner with him, and yeah, he was one of those really true believable big men, and yeah, that's just underrated as a professional wrestler, in my opinion.
Before we had you on, Mike, my partner said something very interesting, and there could be some truth to it with other factors involved. Do you think that Mike might have been too nice behind the scenes because of the blockage he was getting from people like Scott Hall or Kevin Nash or Michaels? Because he did share with us that he did not exactly have comfortable moments with the guys who seem to exist in Vince McMahon's office all the time? Was it a matter of him being too nice, or how do you think he might have been able to handle that differently? Because I always believe it's the booker at the end of the day that's going to make or break you, and perhaps politics got involved, or was he just too nice for the business?
I almost think that his connection with me probably hurt him a lot, because those same guys that you're talking about were the same guys that had took a disliking to me, you know.
Okay. Okay.
And it was funny because I spent a lot of time with Scott Hall in Europe and in the WCW, and but those guys took a disliking to me, and I think a lot of it had to do with connection with me, unfortunately. Um, but whether he was too nice, I don't know. Unfortunately, I wasn't around him when he was around those guys, so I really couldn't tell you what his relationship with those guys was. I know he didn't think very highly of Scott Hall, but you know, when Hall's name came up, he was pretty upset, you know. So, but yeah, unfortunately, things happen, and for whatever reason, it's just a shame that he didn't get the push that he deserved.
You know, Paul, I don't want to make this all about you, but I think it's important because me and Jimmy were talking before you came on how over you were, right? So you guys were like in two different worlds. You were like major over, and he was major over. You guys just never got it. Like, I know you worked together in Germany, but when you were in WCW and then he was in the WWE, what was the issue with the guys with you? Because I know Mike had told me there was some issues. Could you explain like why those guys didn't like you? Was it because you were over? Because you were hugely over, man. It was like, forget about it.
Well, they shit got pinned on me, and I couldn't tell you what the whole truth of what it was. But there was a time in the WCW there where we were in England, and some guys got money stolen, and then they tried to pin that crap on me. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it was true or not, because you can tell a lie as many times as you want. Sooner or later, some people are going to believe it, and that's kind of where that all started. But yeah, we were both over, and I think there was a lot of jealousy because Mike had the potential to get over like Rover with the WWE. And at that time, I mean, I was going into some of these arenas in the South with the WCW, and when we were doing like TVs and stuff, and people would be sitting on their hands, and then my music would start, and all these people would be up, they'd be dancing in the aisles, and they'd be going woohoo, woohoo, and it was crazy. I didn't expect that kind of stuff, and I think the entertainment business in general is a hard business to get over with if you're not a cliquey person. And neither Mike and I are really cliquey. So it's just hard. If you don't belong in the clique, you're not gonna get that push that you want. It takes a, yeah. How do I explain it? I mean, to get over the clique, you've got to really be something else, altogether. And fat guys and fat or big men in the business was starting to die out when Mike and I were in our prime. They were starting to just push bodies and stuff like that, or high flyers, and the big man was kind of dying off in the industry.
I was discussing with Mike before the show when we first met Mantaur, Mike. I was so blown away by the size of him from the back, his shoulders. He was just so wide. I turned to Mike, I said, I've never seen someone this wide. Yeah. I mean, oh my God, he's just immense. So my question is do you think that the size of you and Mike, because you guys were so big, and I was discussing with Mike before the show, outside of Nash, the rest of those guys, I don't think that any of them were anywhere near your size. They had to be intimidated by you guys. So I guess the best way for them to fight back with you was just to go to Vince and try to sabotage you. Is there anything to that? Because of your size, they were intimidated by you guys?
I think that you nailed a lot of it there. And Mike was an intimidating individual. He was a real, he was big, and he had a tremendous amateur background. This is
Yes.
one of those guys you just didn't
Yes.
want to you didn't want to mess with, and he had that real, he wasn't the strongest bench presser. He wasn't the strongest guy in the gym, but neither was Gary Albright. But they were tremendous amateur wrestlers
Mm.
in their days and stuff like that. And Mike had that real. He had a real good. I mean, he had that, that grip, that strength that you just feel if he grabs you, you just felt that. I guess you'd call it like tendon strength. I
Right.
think he's one of those guys. If he wanted to, he could have been a hell of an arm wrestler with the tendons that he had on him and stuff. And then you look at his legs. His legs were just massive. There wasn't an ounce of fat on his legs at all. Yeah, I wouldn't want those legs grabbing a hold of me. He just every time, like I said, every time he grabbed a hold of you just felt it. When he got his hands on you and stuff like that. And I know for a fact people would have been intimidated and jealous of his look. I mean, you think about the time, the era of the industry that Mike was in, and you're talking your Vaders,
Mm.
your Bam Bams, guys like that were
Right.
getting the huge push and stuff. And yeah, it was just, yeah, and the lack of the fact that we're not clicky guys, it just kept Mike from getting that real big push.
Well, it's funny, right? I say this to Jimmy all the time. So I'm 260. I'm somewhat of a big guy, but when I come to guys like you and Mike, it was like I'm like the Jimmy. Holy shit! It's like what you know. Listen, so here's a question, and Jimmy, I hope you don't mind me saying this, right? So, Paul,
No,
earlier in the
hit it.
beginning, you mentioned you and Mike were adopted, and Jimmy's actually adopted too. Um, can you share with the fans out there, the audience, like, is it a disadvantage when you start off life being adopted? What's your outlook on that? I mean, Jimmy and I have spoken about it. Me and Jimmy are very close, and I don't think he'd get upset. I hope he wouldn't get upset about me asking this. But do you think there's a disadvantage there, and does it affect you negatively mentally to start off your life? And I'm sure you talked to Mike about it. Did it affect Mike? I know how close he was to his adopted parents, but anyway, Paul.
Well, you know what? I don't consider myself a victim of in any shape or way or form, and I don't think Mike ever felt like he was a victim. He did. He was him. His dad took him to wrestling events when he was in high school. Just drove him all over the country and stuff like that. I mean, they really, Bob and Mike were pretty tight. When it came to it, when it came right down to it. And I don't think he felt like a victim either. Is there something in the mind? Is there something in the back of the head mentally? Yeah, I think there is 100%. But neither one of us really had a victim mentality. He was a survivor, and that's what he did. But yeah, yeah, like I said, in the back of your mind, I mean, I'm sure there's a little thing. Hey, wasn't I good enough? Why did my mom give me up or whatever? And everybody's got their own reasons, and I've got no ill feeling to my birth mother or anything like that. But I was also raised in a great family, and Mike was too. And I say, no matter what happens, you just have to make the most of every situation. And I think that's something that Mike did. And it was I don't think he was a victim in any sense of the word when it comes down to being adopted or so.
Paul, were you able to speak to Mike's father? I know the mother had passed away, and we were fortunate enough to meet his father, me and Jimmy, and meet his beautiful daughter. Were you able to make contact with them, or was it kind of like your relationship with Mike was like a separate type of situation?
Well, you know what? I got along with him for a little while, but I really didn't talk too much to Bob. I tried to get in touch with Demi a little bit, and I talked to Mike's estranged girlfriend Jane and stuff. we've kept in touch over the time because, both of us, we had so many moments sitting in Mike's living room and just hanging out and telling stories and laughing our heads off. And so Jane was more my common ground than Bob was, I guess.
We were talking about. I was talking about when I was fortunate to meet you guys, and you guys were doing a show on the network, and I was telling the story of how you and Mike had like fallen out of favor with each other, but I later on learned that was like a little brotherly thing that you guys would have your issues with each other, disappear a little bit, come back and recover.
Yeah.
If you could share a story about you and Mike where he was really hard to deal with. Can anything come to mind?
Yeah, trying to do that podcast. That was really difficult. He was, you know what? It was funny because I approached him with the idea, about the podcast, and then he said, "Yeah, that sounds great. I love it." And then he was having one of his moments for for a little while, and then he had, he'd been in touch with Universal, and he was talking to you guys, and then he came back to me and he said, "Well, I've got a platform for us." And I was like, "Okay." And then Mike was like, "But I want to be the host." I'm like, "Mike, we're co-hosts." But
Oh
Mike
boy.
wanted to make it all about him and stuff like that. And so I tried to, I tried to work with him. And I'm on a different time zone than all you guys, and sometimes it was just difficult to get on the same page with Mike, and if it wasn't, and at that time, if it wasn't about Mike, he wasn't really interested, So,
Yeah, Mike could be a tough. Mike could be a tough egg. I want to bring you back 1 second though. So, I don't think I'm revealing anything too important. But before Mike's untimely passing, I know he had come here to go to Niagara Falls with the girlfriend you were just speaking about, and then they had a falling out. Does she feel any guilt? Like maybe she felt like that breakup or whatever was going on at that time may have caused him to pass away? I mean, a crazy question, but just asking.
No, no, not at all. Because from all the information and all the gathering all the talking we did about it, what had happened that day, because they were still in contact and everything. And what had happened that day is he was filling up his tank, and he ended up tripping. I mean, this is the sad thing about it. He ended up tripping over the gas hose, and being an amateur wrestler, as he was falling down, he thought he was still cat-like, and he could twist over and get on all fours like a cat, right? And he twisted, and he didn't get all the way around. The hose was caught in his feet, and he fell down, and he fractured his back, and and then he was in tremendous pain from what I understood. And then when he ended up, he went to the doctor, he had the x-rays, and they actually sent him home with his fractured back, and they gave, he got some painkillers for it. And apparently he went and he laid down in bed. He took a couple pills and he laid down in bed, and Bob went in to check on him later, and he'd already passed away, so it was, as untimely as the death was, Jane has nothing to fear, but it had nothing to do with her. I think it was just, he was a big guy, and the mixture of the pain and then taking painkillers. And I've never been a fan of painkillers. So many guys in this business have lost their life and OD'd from that kind of stuff. I mean, we can talk about fentanyl all you want, but guys have been having issues with painkillers since they've been around. And it was and Mike wasn't, not that Mike was a pill popper or anything like that, but I just think, over the time, being 50, what was he, 54, 54, 55, and the painkiller, a mixture with the heart that might not have been as strong as it used to be. I think that was more the issue than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy and I saw it. He was in tremendous amount of pain, and he was definitely on a regimen of pain relieving stuff to help him along.
Well, yeah, he'd been struggling for a long time. He had problems with his feet, and he had other issues with his back and stuff like that. So it wasn't, he was dealing with pain all the time. And like I said, he wasn't popping pills or anything all the time. It was just once in a while. But then at that point, I don't even want to think about fracturing my back. Just thinking about what would happen if I fell and fractured something. I just don't know. Yeah, it must have been agonizing for him before he passed, unfortunately.
Mm. Well, Paul, again, I want to thank you for coming on, and especially you're quite the gentleman. By the way, you look great. I haven't seen you in a bit. You look you look great. You look great. Jimmy, you want to hit Paul with the Pharaoh's final question? Again, Paul, I really want to thank you because I know from my dealings with Mike how much you meant to him. I mean, he would share things. I was telling Jimmy earlier before you came on. He would share things, and he certainly spoke very highly of you. I mean, when the fights were happening, it was a whole different thing. But on a regular basis, he spoke very, very highly of you, and you just coming
Mike
on.
And I, Mike and I were, like I said, we were like brothers, and brothers argue and fight, but there was no malice in between us in the end. It was just, all right, we need our time to cool down, and then and it was weird because just before he my birthday's in July, and just before I hadn't talked to him in a little while, and just before he passed away, his last message to me was a birthday message, and I went to text him back, and he never really got the message, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this, and this would be probably the most perfect send-off to the great Mike Halac, a friend of all three of ours and a brother to the great PN News. If Mike was here, what would you say to him?
I'd tell him to eat a salad.
Wow.
No, wait a minute. Is that salad crouton free?
No, it'd be the way Mike ate his salad. It would have a little bit of everything in there. Probably have more calories.
Paul, come on. No. If he was to eat a salad, it would have like 2 giant slices of lemon meringue pie and key lime pie, and it'd stop it. I saw that guy eat a key lime pie and act like it was nothing, man. I was like, I could eat a lot, and I'm like, holy cow, this is the
Mike. I'm sorry, guys. I still remember Mike's face as because you were being a gracious host that night. You were paying for the tab, and he started he ate a whole meal, and then he said, "Okay, so what's the second course?" And I saw Mike's face go from having a casual time to how much is this?
That's that's exactly. I go, are you fucking kidding me right now? And the worst part was, I had breakfast with him right in Florida, and I paid for his breakfast, Paul, but get this. The motherfucker ate my pancakes. He ate my pancakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, now you know why I'm telling him to eat a salad. That's a funny thing. That is just hilarious. That sounds like Mike. No, but we always used to say, there was always a saying, and it came from England and stuff like that. It was about, I don't know, Big Daddy and somebody else were in the dressing room, and he asked the other, hey, do you like pies, Daddy? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I could eat a whole pie. And that was something I'd always ask Mike, and I'd say, Mike, you like pies? And he goes, I could eat a whole pie.
That is a great.
And he certainly could, man.
That is a great invitation, man. Oh, my God. You know what? All right, here's the test, Paul. You're going to send us out. What was his famous line at the end of every go away?
What was that? What did he say? He says, I got it on the back of his shirt here somewhere.
How's he supposed to wait a minute. How's he supposed to remember? He went away.
No, what did he say? He said, oh, God. Now you got me. I guess I was.
All right, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. You ready?
Here we go.
It's You only live once, right?
Yeah, that's what you only live. No, was it you only live once, or was it? God,
Now I can't remember. Now I can't remember.
I-
Jesus, what a terrible
Hold on
ending
a-
to a tribute.
Way to go,
hold,
Mike.
hold
You
on a
planted
second. Hold on.
You planted
Hold on
the
a
seed and
second.
you forgot to water the plant, Mike. What the? Hey.
Benny.
Okay, I got it.
All right, thank you.
I got it. You ready?
Well, hold
Yeah,
on, Paul.
sure.
But before you say it, Paul, I just want to tell Benny you're wrong. Stop messaging wrong stuff. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
So, because I was actually wearing the SOB T-shirt today, and it's you only live. Okay, so you only die once, but you live every day.
There you go, Paul.
That's what he said.
Jimmy,
Nice.
send us out. Paul,
Yeah.
thank you again. Get some rest. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon. You're quite the gentleman,
Yeah,
sir.
let's do that. Let's talk soon, Mike. Mike, it'd be a pleasure. We can catch up and everything like that.
This life is tearing me apart. This life is tearing me apart. Love was all we really knew. I saw the beauty in this world all around. This life is tearing me apart. This life is tearing me apart. I didn't know it was nothing from